Lesson 6, Implementing Petroleum Environmental Stewardship. Introduction. Even when with the product with the line with the dormant with the pipeline storage tank with the possibility of spilling with the college individual petroleum spills are high. The revenue usually over the valuable reach over the containment, cleaning of the disposal, the restoration, cover the spill, contamination, soil of the water, resulting in the loss of seafood, fowl, spill off to the pollute with the breach of the lake, the rivers, also causing less revenue with the recreational facility with both the federal, state, and the authorities will leave the fine against the individual company with the cause of the spill. Part A, communication with the government, environmental ethics, subordinate of each of the mission of the head of the summary with the impact with the surrounding environment, the environmental empathy consideration, each of the missions shall be weighed with the considering of the weight of the possible every situation when the training subordinate identified with the environmental impact of the mission, but the following elements should always be present in the training standard identified with the hazards of the environmental during miscellaneous mission analysis of the environmental hazard with the condition of the head potential pollute with the air, with the soil, water, with the degrade, with the natural cultural resources, except for the probability of the environmental damage violation, even the risk assessment matrix to make the decision develop measure for the risk of the high risk for the implementing environmental measurement that integrate with them and the plan with the order of standard optimization procedure training performance standard and rehearsals. Supervisor environmental standard for the training with the standard with the most important technique with the training so the orders with the divide with the environmental risk with the best environmental impact with the make them think like they are their health and health of the land of the water with the take with the get so one is to see the relevance and the importance for the good environmental ethics is crucial. Not only identification of environmental risk with the potential impact with also equal and important with the consequence of the non-compliance with environmental laws, the regulation importance of particularly environmental can be stressed with the discuss the consequence of environmental degradation of the benefits of environmental protection. Consequence of environmental degradation. Consequence of environmental degradation found with the loss of historical site vegetation, water resource, wildlife, the diminished quality available, realistic training area, the diminished operational security, effective the tactical operation creation of the safety hazard, personal and equipment, increase the training and maintenance cost of the litigation, benefits some of the environmental protection. There are many benefits of the environmental protection: enhanced combat readiness, ensure mission completion, conversion of fighting strength with protecting the environment, reduce the army nation's current and the future cost of environmental restoration. Consequence of non-compliance environmental law regulations. Excellent way to communicate the consequence of non-compliance subordinates to explain the general non-compliance of the Federal Facilities Compliance Act with empower the federal state of the regulatory agencies and pull the fine some federal agencies, including the Army, the Bureau of the Conservation and Recovery Act. The violation penalty intervention can be taken in the following form: damage awarded intervention with the environmental protection agency of the federal, state, and regional agencies, and increase the monitoring of the federal agencies and fines. Even with the later with the subordinate required to comply with all federal, state, and local laws to protect the environment, the violators should be held with the personal liable to clean up the cause of the civil and criminal penalty violations include actual personal with the cause of the containment of the container, supervised leave with the allowed with the contamination of the curve that didn't take the immediate action for the prevent the curve of the occurrence. The penalty can obtain the $50,000 each day of the violation up to 2 years in jail. After action reports are excellent platform. The reporting of environmental consideration incorporated everyday work life with the standard operation procedure, orders, mission planning with the upon completion, extra of the other training function. All the ways remember to include environmental consideration, good or bad, in the report. Environmental relations, environmental law and policies. All petroleum supervisory imperative of the subordinates are familiar with local standard optimization procedure policies, which should be explained with the law available immediately upon the arrival at the pope. They are often the most extreme, all inclusive of the attempt to comply with the federal, state, and local law, regulation, and policy. Local and standard environmental laws vary for the region, but it should be able to all subordinates. Important the reference of the lab of the major federal part of the regulation can be found in Field Manual 2400 of the Military Environmental Section. Subordinates should be routinely quizzed and observe the performance of the duties to ensure that they are in some way familiar with local laws and regulations that are applicable to them. The host nation environmental law of the regulation may have various numerous complexity, the same as the U.S. and they almost non-existent at any rate, given the fact that you may have been in a foreign country where the penalties can be very tough. The good idea of ensure that the subordinates are familiar with the law of the regulation of the host nation. Part V, Environmental Risk Assessment. Identification of environmental risk associated with the given mission, training, exercise, the one of the most important function of the performance. The supervisor, the unit leader, Army is also known the more important the place of environmental stewardship. The idea of the identifying with the possible ahead of the time. There are three major voices of the environmental risk identification associated with the training mission: action before training, action during training, and actions after training. Assessing the environmental risk. The assessing of risk assessment allow the commanders and unit leaders to strive for the environmental consideration of the following steps: identify the hazards environmental during the mission analysis of the environmental hazard of all conditions that potential polluting the air, soil, water, and or degrade natural cultural resources. Excess probability of the environmental damage or violations due to the environmental risk assessment matrix to make decisions develop measure for the reduced high risk of the reef for the chain of the command, ensure the installation of environmental officers if applicable the appropriate decision make with a proposed plan residual risk. Implementing environmental measures for the integrated them into the plan of the order, standard operation procedures, training, performance, and standard rehearsals. Supervising forces environmental standard for the training with the standard of the environmental risk for the assessment made to provide the appropriate approach to assess the risk relative to the risk for the generic unit level of activities as special specific environmental area, the environmental risk assessment matrix with the three main categories: environmental area, unit operation risk impact value, the environmental area, air pollution, aerological, high historical sites, hazardous material, hazardous weight, the noise, pollution, threatened or endangered species, water pollution, wetland protection, unit protection. Unit operation, company level activities, moving the heavy vehicle system, moving the personal and light vehicle systems, assembly area activities, the field maintenance, the equipment, the garrison maintenance, the equipment, the risk and impact value, the numeric value, the value represents the estimate of the conditions under which the unit is operating within its indicator of the severity of the environmental degradation. Use the following assessment and assess the environmental impact of the planned activities and identify the hazards of environmental degradation, wetlands, polluting stream with the distribution, endangered species, habitat, archaeological sites, and/or structure for the creating oil spills, and properly handling hazards with hazardous material. Assess probability, environmental damage, violation, environmental risk assessment matrix with the decision, develop measure for the reduce the high risk, the brief, the chain with the command, installation, environmental office, with the applicable, the proposed plan with the pertinent, the high risk environmental matrix, integrate environmental measure for the truth of the standard operation procedures, training, performance standard of the rehearsal, supervise the enforcement environmental standard of the training of the standards. Control of the reduce. Reduce the identified plan must be developed and implemented. Control of the reduce the risk, the development of the environmental risk control from the AR of the environmental risk assessment. These in control are identified from the known previously that have been identified. Some of the exist of the risk control that implemented are restrict the high risk land areas, particularly vehicle operations, centralized personnel on performing maintenance on other tasks involving hazardous material, substance near water source. I'll use the portable contaminated system for the field handling of the hazardous substance. Be prepared to correctly respond to spills, having qualified personnel correctly equipped on hand, having highly qualified to supervise high-risk tax operations. Our supervisor evaluate risk control of the implemented. Part of the environmental risk reduction branch of the implementation risk involved with the incorporated the mission plan with the order of the standard operation, procedure, training, performance standard, the rehearsal of the activity, environmental consideration should be addressed, supervised evaluation, environmental risk control with involved with the following conservation, mission, enemy, terrain, weather, troops, equipment, and time. Mission, anticipate assessing the environmental risk during the planning with the annual of the effect of the environmental risk of the mission operation, simply scheme of the maneuver, the just issue for the complete and kids life for the words, ensure the key leaders of the track of the exercise, the render of the time of the reports, identify alternative to train scenario of the task, technique for the large scale of the brigades, battalion and brigade sectors, sketch for the details, sending of the key leaders, objective of the reconnaissance, speak with the environmental steward within the units to ensure the soldiers are aware of the comply with that standard, the keep the chain with the informed of the environmental problems, concern with the take of the immediate effect of the action response to the spills and other emergencies. Enemy opposing forces, any of the opposing force for the commanders understand the environmental problems with the concern with the know the environmental enemy character for the equipment to identify the environmental impact of the decision, terrain, weather, ensure the high risk areas such as waters, archaeological sites, and endangered species are identified and marked them and they accurately know your location, ensure the boundaries are identified, ensure the redundant navigation aids or check with know the weather facts, dry, windy, wet, soggy conditions, limit alter operations accordingly, troops and equipment. Troops and equipment ensure the soldiers briefed on the environmental concern with the same with the remaining situational awareness of the unit, enemy, the hazards, environment, and anticipate the maneuver density within the highest availability standard operation procedures, simply operation, if the accurate and timely spot reports, the reckoning of the soldiers strive the rehearsals always, time, maximize playing time, prior towards task, rehearsal, reconnaissance, adjust pace and tempo. Again, the best way to supervise, evaluate, and take again any type of the control of the measure, take the wide range of effort, the continuous stressing environmental stewardship of the environmental work, do the function you can supervise, ensure that the subordinates integrate with the environmental friendly, sustainable actions doing the daily duties. Part C, planning, conducting environmental sustainable actions and training. When planning, training, the exercise, the preparing, petroleum facility with the standard operation procedure, always address the environmental risk associated with the activity. Make sure the subordinates are aware of the risk of the involved with the given exercise of the mission and other activities, and then even the subordinates are able to identify the environmental risk associated with the everyday and out of the ordinary task. In the absence of specific guidance, when the law of regulation policy does not necessarily apply, they should be assumed the toughest law will apply. This is the roof of the army of the environmental ethic is imagined with the worst possible scenarios, consequent of not acting more right with regard to the situation. Part D, verification of the hazardous substance are turned in such order in the IAW local unit policy applicable environmental regulations. Using local hazardous waste management program, ensure the following has been checked with the complete with the DOD in 1348 with the DOD single line item, the receipt with the release and receipt document with the containers fill capacity the market label and containers inspection. DOD form 1348 with the DOD line and single item, the receipt and the documentation of the hazardous waste accumulation facility manager complete with the DO form 1348-1 with the materials needed properly classified described and packaged, marked, or labeled in proper condition from the Transportation Military Standard 129, the minimum requirement of the uniform marking of military supplies equipment for the shipping and storage provided in Military Standard 129. Containers of the not good if they begin with a leak with the container with the transported to the surface that was named over packaged immediately on the dot. Approve the container with the capability of the materials being stored. Ability to use the container hold the waste. Always close it during the store of the container with the hold the waste. Not open the handles and stored in a manner with the cover of the container with the rupture or leak. Containers holding igniting in the reactive waste that are located with at least 50% of the 50 feet away from the installation property line. With all the containers must be labeled and labeled the marking pens. The Sharpie extra fine point marking pen. Do not use the ballpoint pens. Label the marking. They must be replaced but not damage the loss of the store. The store also container exit for the container label. The type of the labels correspond with the type of the waste. Labels are not to be placed over the labels. All drum-like containers are labeled to their contents. Empty drum-like containers are labeled empty. Alright, a container inner liner, remove the container that has been held in hazardous empty waste with the empty. If all of the waste have them removed with the practice commonly employed with the removal of the material with the type of the container with the pouring and the pumping, the aspirating and scraping. The container that held with the hazardous way with the compressed gas, the empty with the pressure for the container is that atmospheric pressure. Container inner lining, remove the container has actually has with the waste with the empty with the triple ring rinse used with a solvable capable of the removal of the commercial chemical product with the manufactured chemical intermediate is cleaned by another method that has been shown with a significant literature but I have the conduct with the generator to achieve the equivalent removal of the inner liner of the preventive with the contact with the commercial chemical product with the manufactured chemical intermediate with the container is removed. Inspection facilities provide with the store and handle the youth and hazardous substances will be periodically inspected the hazardous material of the hazardous waste for the conservative inspection the arm mouth of the hazardous material that will handle limited the material minimum needed. No stockpiling the hazardous material. This is the unit of hazardous material hazardous waste inventory quantity and location up to date. If the hazardous waste containers have the drum log with the count with all the additions specified by the person authorized to make an addition with the container, that all the material safety data sheets at hand with all the hazardous material, the material safety data sheets ready available to all the worker with exposure to the hazardous material. If the hazardous waste accumulated with the authorized container, there are the containers labeled accordingly directed with the container's good condition, clothed when not used with the contents of the container compatible to the container. There are accumulations started with the hazardous waste labeled the hazardous waste container. The container storage and inspected with the required intervals. If the hazardous material hazardous waste managed with the proper pickup of the transportation facility to disposal according to the directives, or use the oil accumulation tanks used to collect with the hazardous waste and other pollutants and air and danger warning signs conspicuously placed. Our personnel trained in properly handling collection and store of the transportation hazardous material and hazardous waste. The assumption of the of the hazardous material hazardous waste items are the POL cans, drums to dispose of the property, or the asbestos containing part of the brake shoe, the clutch plate, equipment installation removal of the collective, the disposed property, or the battery stored and disposed property is the equipment contained with the radioactive procedure and process sources, guns, motorcycle, the M81 alarms properly stored and prevent breakage of the release of the radioactive material, or incident reported properly is ammunition stored properly. Party verification, properly conservation of the resource of the AR 201 addressed to the Army have the material management program. This program outlines the procedure that implemented the installation of use of the minimize, eliminate the use of the hazard material when possible. Use of the following alternative substitute less hazard for the non-hazardous material. Modify the process of the procedure to reduce, eliminate the use of the restrict the user inventory, reduce the consumptive use of the direct ordering the extent of the shelf life, regenerate spent material with the downgrade, reuse spent material with the reuse for the other perfect combinations above. Hazard material required by for testing petroleum products can be some of the most dangerous substances. If the use of them has material that you would perform various tests in the petroleum lab or not substitute, there are supervisors that have the focus on hazard material management efforts of minimization, conservation, and use of these materials. Unit recycling program. Ensure that the subordinates familiar with the participation in the recycling program. Verify the support with among the ensure that all recyclable materials are being replaced, such as the computer paper, the corrugated cardboard, newspaper, high-grade white paper, aluminum can, plastic, oil, solvents, glass, steel, and brass. Make sure the recyclable material is separated with absorb the contaminated, otherwise unrecyclable should be removed clean with the properly disposed of the check of the installation environmental office to verify the get information from the material being recyclable in the air with implementing techniques to avoid overuse of pollution. Implementation techniques protect the training area of the land accomplished by integrating them into environmental risk assessment matrix of the mission, standing authorization procedure, order, training, performance, and standards. Alright, Part F, verification. Equipment the person correct for the procedure for the containment of the cleanup of the hazmat. The equipment the material required the each of the work area that can be found with local ISCP with the SPCC prior to the beginning of the aim for the operation conduct the inspection petroleum facility verify the presence of the condition that following hazardous material spill with the containment cleanup of the equipment the material the solvent absorbent glove the screw and disposable tab bag tie and label the instruction periodically check the equipment the material for the serviceability making sure that they are in serviceable condition sure the personnel are familiar with the local ISCP and SPCC. Spill contaminant cleaning up training of the verification. Periodically, the supervisor of petroleum facility should conduct with the exercise of the verify the personnel of the train up to date with the spill contaminant cleaning up. They should verify the petroleum facility. The personnel are current with the emergency spill contamination cleaning procedure requirements. Upon the discovery of the spill, personnel shall take any action as follows: safety, stop the source of the source of the spill, if possible, closing the valve, upright containers, etc. contained with the spill, apply absorbent and ensure the adequate ventilation in the erect barriers, otherwise restrict the stop of the flow and block sewers. When reporting the spill of the insulation fire, the emergency service of the 911 found the question should be considered to determine the nature of the severity of the spill. Is the spill substance classified as flammable liquid? Is the quantity spilled over 25 gallons or more? The spill contained with the hard surface if the possible spill will reach the surface of water, wetlands, groundwater, streams, just the sewer, the drains. The reporting activity capable of the cleanup of the spill substance classified the required quantity, the value of the not only the appropriate equipment, the important of the handling of the spill, but the most important they have the properly with the trained personnel and supervisor to do with the verify the personnel conducting an operation are trained properly use the spill, clean up the containment, the equipment, and the handling of the spill must be also employed with the proper procedure of the IAW, ISCP with the spill SPCC. Once the spill is occurred, be taken with the care must be reported with the petroleum. Other hazardous spill must be reported immediately with the view of the chain with the command and clean immediately after. The person's safety precautions have been taken with the notification of the people in the area made of the IAW, ISCP, SPC, and the unit standard operating procedure. All right, your spill prevention control countermeasure (SPCC). And the purpose of the spill with the control countermeasure plan with identify the potential source of the oil has the substance measure for the required to prevent and contain the accidental discharge of the result of the equipment stored with the vessel with the minimum of the spill prevention control countermeasure must be the contain with the detailed description of oil spill with the prevention control countermeasure. The included structure equipment with the diversion and contain with the discharge facility drainage, the identification of the restore with the cleanup spill with the description of the spill which occurred within at least 12 months. Last 12 months for the corrective action taken to the plan reoccurrence any other environmental listing of storage, handling, and transfer facility of the oil spill hazards that will include the prediction, direction of flow, the rate of flow, the total quantity which could be discharged. Contaminated spill. It is important to contain the spill in order to prevent oil disbursement at least less than with the degree of the pollution as if the problem. The cleanup of the situation of the spill was related to the fire. The contamination prevented large fire hazard for the containment of the existing fire. The water spill. The unique side of the environmental effect of the effect of how spills are handled. Strong with the current increase of the head wave. The may move over under a single boom. However, the large wave of the sea wave will add the breaking up of the spill with the lowest temperature of the atmospheric conditions such as the snow blocks leak cause oil to be moved viciously. Therefore, the Spartans would be work more slowly. Our contaminating spill in the water was typically done with a with a boom. With a boom should be positioned with a down current within a situation where the large head wave of the U with the more with one boom. In addition, you could use the fire over the propeller, washer, wind jet with the position piston film to control the water spill. The containment of the land spill, the land spill will require the U to consider the several factors evaluation of the storage direction of the spill, the wood flow with the proximity of the water source that needs to be evaluated before the contaminated method is employed. Depending on the situation, burn with the man with the sandbag with the pile of dirt with the straw with the cloth, fiber, wood, a chip with the active ditch with natural barriers may be used to contaminate spill. In addition to all alarms, the automatic shut-off devices, drip pans, slop tanks can be used to prevent ground contamination. Spill cleanup method. The spill cleanup with the water with the complex use with the absorption such as rolls will sweep the bed with particular oil snares, bags, and boom. Depending on the situation, wear belt with the drum, oil, water, skimmer that may also be employed to remove the oil. The spill cleanup of the land is performed differently depending on the size of the nature of the spill. Subwarrants are either the small pivot which allow the spills would require the use of mechanical equipment such as the scraper, the grader, the bulldozers, and some of the inch of the plowing, the tilling of the soil. That is all that is required. Pumps also must be utilized to remove the oil from some area of the wash into retrieval areas. Beach is extremely sensitive to the oil spill, but the oil will protect the 2 inch if it's chemically retrieved, the penetrate the 2 to 5 times due to the federal statute would indicate that chemicals can cause the harm within the spill with itself. The Environmental Protection Agency approval is needed to use the chemical cleanup method to dispersing biological agents such as oil-eating bacteria, enzyme sticking agents, the gelling agents, the burning agents, chemical agents used with the government approval under the 2 conditions: danger of the fire, which could be harmful to the lives, and when the spill is traveling in the direction of fish or wildlife sensitive to the area. Part G, the resources of the procedure of the proper disposal of the handling of the hazardous material. In order to maintain compliance with the necessary safety guidelines of the petroleum facility, there must be a hands-on reference material with a technician that can refer to the latest version of the hazardous material reference required to keep the concerned visible, easily accessible location for the petroleum facility. ISO 9002, every petroleum facility should maintain a copy of the latest version. ISO 9002, the documentation procedures for safe handling of the disposal of hazardous material listed by type of the substance of the material. Your hazardous material information system, the HMI, the sheets of the hazardous substance can be maintained with each applicable substance in your facility, proceed with the shape of the handling, disposal with each of the hazardous safety listed on each of the sheeting of the handling of the precaution for the safe handling and use. Your material safety data sheets, MSDS, are required the minimum to maintain with each of the hazardous substances within the facility, proceed with the safe handling, disposal of the hazardous substance listed on the heading with the handling and storage precaution in the handling spill and leak with the procedure for the disposal. Lesson 7: manage pack fuels.